There is a major change happening in Asia. It's quiet, but its impact is huge. Japan is gradually building a system that can cut off China's connection to Taiwan. The old defense system that has existed for almost 80 years is being changed. From a simple shield, it is being turned into an offensive weapon. A system that is not just for defense, but can also attack. In the southwestern part of Japan, the islands are turning into a missile network. This is not just a simple military base, it's like an interconnected system, organized and ready to act at any time. This includes new types of weapons, hypersonic missiles, drones capable of carrying out direct attacks, and defenses spread throughout the Pacific. Along with this, there are also economic and military alliances with Europe and Ukraine. This is not just about war, it also affects the economy, trade routes, and supply chains, because the Taiwan Strait is one of the most important trade routes in the world. If this is blocked, the global market, shipping, semiconductors, and energy supply will be affected. Because of this, China's room to maneuver is gradually shrinking. Every week, their options become more limited, and you can see this in the way statements are made under the leadership of Xi Jinping. Stronger, more aggressive. Meanwhile, Sanai Takaichi's strategy is clear. Strengthen the economy and pair it with solid security. But before we start, don't forget to like this video. It means a lot to us content creators. Thank you very much, and now let's get started. On March 31, 2026, Japan deployed Type 25 surface-to-ship missiles at Camp Kingun in Kumamoto. This is a direct warning, because it can reach targets near the mainland of China. It has a range of up to 1,000 kilometers. This means that even from a distance, it can stop any amphibious operation by China in the East China Sea. Not only that, they also deployed hypervelocity gliding projectiles at Camp Fuji in Shizuoka. Because of their speed, they can bypass air defense systems. And in future versions, it could possibly reach 2,000 to 3,000 kilometers. That means even China's logistics lines. The areas around Taiwan could be hit. In other words, if China plans to surround Taiwan, they have to face the possibility of simultaneous missile strikes from Japan. And this is where the game changes. For the first time, there's a concrete obstacle to China's plan for regional dominance. This isn't just a simple deployment of weapons. This is a strategic move, a step that could change the balance of power across Asia. And remember, it's not just the Type 25 missiles that Japan has. There's more coming. That's not all Japan is doing. They have additional strength that makes China's situation even more difficult. There are 400 Tomahawk cruise missiles purchased from the United States. These are being integrated into Japan's Aegis destroyers. The integration was completed on JS Chokai in March 2026. Because of this, Japan gained a sea-based strike capability that reaches up to 1,600 kilometers. This means that even from the sea, they can hit distant targets. And this is not just a weapon, it is part of a larger system. All of these are operated under the Joint Operations Command. The movements of the land, sea, and air forces are unified. It's more coordinated. The response is faster. The precision is higher. This also includes intelligence support from the United States. Targeting becomes more accurate. Fewer resources are wasted. And when it comes to military spending, the use of each missile is more efficient. But to understand the whole strategy, it's important to look at the geography. The Nansei or Ryukyu island chain is lined up along the East China Sea in the southwestern part of Japan, and its end is less than 70 miles from Taiwan. This includes islands like Yonaguni, Ishigaki, and Miyako. These are like checkpoints, choke points that Chinese ships have to pass through if they want to get out of the so-called first island chain. For example, Chinese warships have to pass through narrow passages like the Miyako Strait, and now these routes are within reach of Japan's missiles. This means that every move China makes comes with a corresponding risk. Every route is guarded. Every step has a corresponding cost. The fortification of these islands began almost a decade ago, but it accelerated even more in 2026. Yonaguni Island, which is about 110 kilometers from Taiwan, used to have no military presence before 2016. Now it has coastal observation units, teams for electronic warfare, and soon it will also have air defense missiles. In 2022, a missile landed near the island while China was conducting military exercises around Taiwan. This pushed Japan to take defense more seriously. Now they are also installing electronic jamming systems. Its purpose is to disrupt the enemy's communications. This will be Japan's first base focused on this kind of warfare. And in modern warfare, it's not just bullets that matter, signals too, information as well. In other words, Japan is not only building up its strength, they're also strengthening control. And in a battle where information is the key, that's the more dangerous weapon. Japan is further strengthening its defenses in the southwest. They deployed missile batteries, Patriot air defense systems, and modern radar networks in Ishigaki and Miyako. More than 10,000 soldiers are stationed in that region. This means that if China sends ships to the north or east of Taiwan, they won't only have to think about Taiwan and the United States. They also have to include Japan. And with every additional enemy, the risk increases. The cost of the operation also goes up. But the changes in Japan aren't just about traditional missiles. Their strategy is moving in a more modern direction. The events in the war in Ukraine and the Middle East have had a big influence. Japan is using the lessons learned from those battles. According to reports, they are focusing more on the development of kamikaze drones. These are unmanned aerial vehicles that can loiter and strike at targets. They have a range of over 1,000 kilometers. The strategy is simple but effective. Use cheap drones first to exhaust the enemy's air defenses. Then, follow up with stronger missile strikes on the launch sites. It's an approach that has been proven in actual combat. It's cheaper, more flexible, and more exhausting for the enemy. Aside from this, Japan is also testing a new generation of unmanned systems. Equipment that can be launched from submarines and aircraft, capable of moving on the surface and underwater. This is directly inspired by Ukraine's use of naval drones against Russia in the Black Sea, a strategy that has caused significant damage to the Russian Navy. There is also direct cooperation between Japan and Ukraine. In March 2026, a Japanese drone company invested in a Ukrainian firm. The goal of this is to transfer knowledge from actual battlefield experience. If the production of affordable interceptors in Japan succeeds, there could be a new layer of defense, a system that can deplete China's expensive missile stock using cheaper equipment. In economic terms, this is a big deal, because in modern warfare, it's not just about strength. It's also a battle of costs. If your weapons are cheaper but have the same effect, you have a bigger advantage. While Japan is learning from Ukraine's experience, Ukraine is also benefiting from advanced semiconductor technology. An exchange of strengths, a strategic partnership. And because of this, China is facing a different kind of challenge, not just in Asia, but also in the connection between Europe and the Asia Pacific. In other words, Japan's transformation is not just local. It is part of a bigger movement that could change the balance of power in different parts of the world. There is another important aspect to this transformation of Japan. It's not just focused on Asia. It has already reached the global level. The new alliance network with Europe gives a broader dimension to the strategy. In early April 2026, Emmanuel Macron visited Tokyo. There, a defense roadmap was signed that established direct ties between Japan and France. The plan includes a reciprocal access agreement. This means joint military exercises will now be easier. Each side's ports will be more open to the other, and there will be deeper cooperation in space defense and data sharing. This shows that Europe is ready to stand with Japan against China's growing influence in the Indo-Pacific. But the economic aspect is even more critical. The agreement on rare earth elements between Japan and France has a significant impact. Currently, China controls about 70% of the global production of these minerals, and these are essential in the production of electronics, missiles, and other defense systems. Through the Kermag refinery project in France, around 20% of Japan's demand for heavy rare earth will be met. This means that dependence on China is gradually decreasing. And in terms of strategy, this is a huge deal. Because in the past, China used rare earth exports as a political pressure tool. When there is tension, they can tighten the supply, which directly affects the rival's industry. But because of this agreement, it becomes harder to use this kind of tactic. Japan's supply chain becomes more stable, and their defense industry becomes more independent. If you look at the bigger picture, the direction is clear. Japan is not just relying on the United States. They are expanding their network of allies. Europe is included. In a statement, Emmanuel Macron said that Europe should not just follow the two major countries. This shows the desire to have its own position in global politics. For China, these moves are clearly a challenge. They called this an anti-China front, and this kind of reaction shows concern in Beijing. With every move Japan makes, China's response becomes more intense, and with every reaction, it becomes clearer how effective Japan's strategy is. According to the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Mo Ning, Japan's deployment of missiles goes beyond simple defense. For them, this is a move that changes the balance of power. In other words, what's happening now is not just a regional issue. This is a global shift, a change that has an effect on the military, economy, and politics around the world. According to PLA Daily, the main newspaper of China's military, the new Type 12 missile is clearly not just for defense. For them, this is an offensive capability. And according to their analysis, Japan is building a multi-layered attack network. And China's reaction is not just in words. It immediately turned into action. After Japan deployed its missiles, a Chinese fleet entered the Sea of Japan. A swift move that shows Beijing's plan was directly affected. Ning also mentioned an incident where an official from the Japanese self-defense forces tried to enter the Chinese embassy in Tokyo carrying a knife. Instead of focusing on the internal issue, Beijing used this to criticize Japan's increasing military buildup. For China, this direction is dangerous. But on the other hand, this also shows how sensitive the issue is for them. If you look at the whole picture, it's clear that there is a quiet but profound change in the balance of power around the Taiwan Strait. The previous statement of Shinzo Abe that a crisis in Taiwan is also a crisis is no longer just an opinion. It has become the official direction of the country. Even Sanai Takeichi said that Japan might get involved if China tries to take control of Taiwan by force. According to Akihisa Nagashima, the effects are clear. If Taiwan falls under Beijing's control, the foundation of Japan's security will be undermined. It would be as if the border shifted from Shanghai to Taipei. In this situation, Japan's strategy is clear: defense through denial. They don't need to match China's strength. The goal is to make any attack extremely costly in terms of money, resources, and potential risks. If the expense is too high and the return is low, China might think twice, and that's where the strategy becomes effective. In the end, it's not just about weapons or soldiers. This is a battle of calculations. Whoever can impose greater costs on the opponent has the bigger advantage. According to Ken Jimbo, it's a clear message from Japan to China. If their ships pass through narrow routes like the Miyako Strait, it will be extremely costly, not just because of the risk, but especially because of the expenses. At this point, it feels like one big gamble. The other side isn't backing down. On one side, China has given a direct warning to Donald Trump. They said it straight: if you want trouble, there will be trouble. If you want to destroy China, there will be consequences. There is also support from Moscow. This shows that this is not just a local issue. There are wider connections. On the other side, Japan's position is also clear. With just a slight move from Beijing, they are ready to intervene. Now, the situation is extremely tense. Taiwan is on high alert, the U.S. Navy is keeping close watch, and Japan is also ready in case the situation escalates. But if you look deeper, this military exercise is even bigger than that. It's like a full-scale attack. It's as if Taiwan is being surrounded. Based on OSINT data and satellite images, The island is already surrounded from 7 directions. It's a move that seems designed to cut off all its outside connections. China's strategy has 3 main parts. First layer, control of the airspace. Fighter jets like the J-15 and J-16, as well as H-6 bombers, did not enter Taiwan's air defense zone. They almost closed off the airspace. Because of this, it's almost impossible for planes to enter or leave. This immediately affected civil aviation. Flights were canceled, runway operations stopped, and the airports became chaotic. More than 100,000 passengers were stranded. Some were inside Taiwan. Others were on connecting flights that could no longer enter. And this isn't just a problem for people, it also has an effect on the economy. When flights stop, business, supply chains, tourism, and even investor confidence are affected. In an instant, you can see how military pressure is used not just for control, but also to affect the economy. And this is the deeper battle. It's not just about land or sea, but also the movement of money. And whoever can control it better has the real advantage. The second layer of China's actions is the naval blockade. They position their destroyers and frigates in the north, south, and east parts of Taiwan. The entire island is almost surrounded. This isn't just a simple show of force, it has a specific target. The LNG tankers that are vital to Taiwan's energy supply. If these ships are blocked, electricity and industry will be immediately affected. In other words, it's not just the defense that's being hit, but also the economy. China is turning international waters into a danger zone. It's like they're telling all commercial ships passing through the Taiwan Strait that it's no longer safe, and if the shipping companies get scared, they'll avoid it themselves. That means even without gunfire, the supply chain gets disrupted, and the prices of energy and goods go up. The third layer, and the most dangerous, is what's called gray zone warfare. It's not just military ships being used. Even Coast Guard vessels are involved. They're pressuring Taiwanese boats. Whether they're fishing boats or patrol boats, this isn't a direct confrontation. The pressure is continuous, with no rest. The goal is to exhaust Taiwan, always on alert, always tired. And in this kind of situation, there's a bigger chance of making mistakes. And the timing of all this is no accident. China is confident because of Russia's support. For Vladimir Putin, there's a clear benefit to this. If chaos breaks out in the Pacific, the West's attention will be divided, and the focus on Ukraine might decrease. This is the worst-case scenario for NATO and the United States. 2 major crises in different parts of the world, happening at the same time. As Russia's support for China grows stronger, the risk of the conflict escalating increases. What starts as regional could become global. Around Taiwan, movement is gradually becoming more restricted. From the north, there's Japan. From the south, there's the Philippines. The routes around the Taiwan Strait are gradually becoming more controlled. It's harder to move. The risk is higher. And all of this is supported by a huge budget. Since 2022, Japan's defense spending has almost doubled. It reached 9 trillion yen, or around $70 billion in the fiscal year 2025. They have also reached the target of 2% of GDP, even before 2027. This means that all of this is not just a plan. There is funding, there is direction, and the buildup continues. In the end, what is happening is clear. This isn't just ordinary tension. This is a gradual preparation for a bigger conflict. And in this conflict, it's not just weapons that matter, but also money and supplies. And who can last longer? In 2005, China and Japan had the same defense spending. Both were at $43 billion. But now, the gap is huge. China's spending has reached $300 billion. That's almost 6 times more than Japan. That means Japan can't match China in a direct contest of force and strength. But that's not their plan. Instead, they're using their advantages: location, technology, and allies. In this way, they increase China's costs with every move. The plan becomes more complicated. It becomes more dangerous. The United States also plays a big role here. The U.S. Marine Corps based in Okinawa brings missile systems designed for tough battles in coastal areas. They are not focused on just one place. and they hide and suddenly attack when there's an opportunity. Last year, they deployed Nemesis missile launchers in Ishigaki. This is close to Taiwan. The year before that, they installed advanced radar systems in Yonaguni. They also conducted exercises for new weapons and fuel resupply in the same place. That means they're not just preparing weapons, but also logistics. Right now, it seems like the US and Japan are weaving an integrated deterrent system. In the southwestern part of the islands, Japan is in charge of the offense. The US, on the other hand, provides protection and information. But there's one problem. According to Akihisa Nagashima, it's still unclear when all of this can be considered enough. We'll only know that if deterrence fails, like what happened in Ukraine. But for now, every move Japan makes it harder for China to carry out its plans in Taiwan. And every difficulty in the plan adds to preventing conflict. Overall, Japan is quietly changing its old defense policy that they've been following for almost 80 years. The islands in the southwest are no longer just simple observation points. They are now being made into active parts of the defense. There are missile systems that can reach the mainland of China. There are hypersonic weapons, electronic warfare systems, and units ready to attack if necessary. Gradually, a 360-degree defense is being built in the Pacific. At the same time, they are also strengthening asymmetric warfare using kamikaze drones and cheap missiles. In this kind of setup, you don't need a bigger budget. You just need to be smarter in your moves and make the enemy pay a higher price for every mistake. Japan's moves are not just focused on weapons, but also on the economy and allies. Their partnership with Europe is gradually cutting off China's control over the supply chain, especially when it comes to important resources. At the same time, drone technology and actual combat experience are being shared with Ukraine, and there is something in return for that as well. Japan is learning from what is really happening on the battlefield. There are also joint exercises with the United States and the Philippines. Because of this, the routes around Taiwan are becoming more restricted. It's harder to pass through, and the risk is higher. China's reaction is noticeable. They are criticizing Japan. They say that Japan is violating its own laws, and they say that this is a provocation. But honestly, this could also be proof that Japan's strategy is working. Because with every move Japan makes, the cost for China increases if they try to take Taiwan. And as the cost goes up, their options become fewer. Even the PLA Daily has acknowledged that Japan has built a layered attack network. This means they are seriously looking at this change. Japan's shift from simple defense to having the capability to attack is not yet finished. This is just the beginning. But the deployment of the first counter-strike missiles on March 31, 2026 is a clear sign. A long-standing era has ended, and now the balance in the Asia-Pacific is gradually changing. With every step Japan takes, the maritime links around Taiwan are being cut off one by one. And in a quiet way, a new chapter is beginning. A chapter where it's not just about strength, but also about money and strategy. And about who can better control the enemy's movements. But there's another conflict that is rarely talked about. This is the flow of information around the world. As tensions rise, the flow of news and communication becomes more controlled. This isn't just simple censorship. It's a way to shape how people understand the situation. This is where information warfare comes in. You don't need missiles to influence a country. Misinformation and coordinated messages on social media are enough. Within a few hours, the perspective of millions of people can change. For Japan and its allies, this is already part of their strategy. They protect public trust because when people lose confidence, the whole system weakens. On the other hand, this is also used to disrupt the enemy. Release information that can disrupt decision-making. In the end, it's clear that the battle is not just physical. It is also a battle. And whoever controls the information has deeper influence.